down the hammer and pick up the pencil. You're about to listen to the Savvy Radio Show. Learn from real-life real estate investors, experience revealed with the Savvy Landlord as your host.
Yes, finally, friends and family, savvy investors around the world, I have a celebrity. I have said this not really before, but I really do. A celebrity in my life. Man, this guy has been my mentor, idol. It wasn't my original mentor, but he has been one of those mentors that came across when I needed him, and he has been just gracious ever since we have connected. I am not at his stature, so let me just tell you a little bit about him. This is so small compared to the big picture of his heart. He has over 500 units. He has 175 units that are apartments, which is a whole new level of management in itself. It's like learning how to write again. So we may get into multifamily. He has a class coming up on multifamily in Oklahoma City, and I definitely, if you're around the area within a 6-hour drive, you should attend it. He's a speaker, a teacher, a mentor. He looks way younger than being in real estate for 35 years. He has accolades after accolades from schooling as an attorney. You have a master's in something?
Yes, master's in accounting.
Master's in accounting.
How boring can it possibly
How
be?
nerd rock. Anyway, please, turn it up for Robert Elder. Hello, Mr. Elder.
Hello, Stephen, and thank you very much. You are very kind, and I appreciate everything you say.
Man, it's been 2 years. I've almost been on the radio, and I have been begging you to come on. At first, I realized, does this dude not like me? But then I realized, no, that's not the trait. You are an extremely busy man. And how do you do it?
I just get up every day and do the most important things. You make lists and plan. Certainly one way to get a lot done is to find people that you can delegate things to.
Yeah, I heard you on the phone talking to some chick named Heather. You're like, I gotta take this. Heather, you figure it out. I love it. I love entrepreneurs. Have you been an entrepreneur? I know you're an attorney at one time, and I'm curious, how do you become an attorney? Then, are you entrepreneurial, or are you just business? Or tell us about that.
I've been entrepreneurial since junior high school. I've done everything a kid could do: sell seeds door to door, paper routes. At one point, I had an airplane salvage yard, which was little wind up airplanes, and I bought wrecks and sold pieces. So making money, exchanging things for money, services have been in your blood. Is that from your parents? Like, are they entrepreneur? Like, what was their jobs or trades? No. My father's a mechanical engineer. He's very frugal and very intelligent, but he tried his hand one time at being self-employed for 2 or 3 years, and it didn't work very well, but it cemented, and that was when I was, I think, 14, 15, and that cemented in my mind that I wanted to be self-employed. And actually, it was the beginning of something great, and it was the beginning of something that was a hindrance. The great thing was that I wanted to be self-employed. The hindrance was that I wanted to be a sole proprietor, and employees were bad. And so it took me a couple of decades to get over the employees are bad, because you
need them.
Yeah, there's a cap on growth if you don't if you don't loosen up and have some other people help you, as opposed to trying to do everything yourself. So if you are strictly self-employed, one-man show, one-woman show, you can do that. It provides a lot of freedom. But when you quit working, everything stops. And that
the machine stops.
Yeah, that hinders your growth. So to have a real machine that runs all the time, that runs when you're out of town, for me, runs when I'm sitting on the beach, that requires help and assistance from other people.
So is that what got you as an attorney first, sole proprietor, self-employed? Was that your first occupation that you thought that you could do well financially?
No, I went to school, which was undergrad and a master's degree, and my thought was that I would work as funny it turns out this way. I thought I would work as a real estate manager for a pension company or a life insurance company, because they have big real estate portfolios.
Big rates, trusts.
And got out of college and couldn't find a job like that. I worked as an accountant for about 5 or 6 months and hated having a real job. And at one point, I sold my boss a used file cabinet, a used fireproof file cabinet that I bought at an auction, took it to work the next Monday morning and sold it to my boss because I knew he was looking for one of those. And I made more money that week selling him the used file cabinet than I did working as a junior accountant. And that's when I realized I had to get out of that and get back to doing something self-employed. When you can make one sale of a used item and make more money than you make all week at an 8 to 5 job, I knew I had to get back.
Did it ever occur to you that the schooling, the debt, or not the debt, or the paying for school to land you that basic job? Because like now, society, it's the U economy. A lot of people are thinking that way. Like, I don't want to go to college because I'll be in debt and I'm not going to get the return. Did you think that back then, or did you just follow the basic American dream, go to college, get a good job?
I was certainly brought up with the thought that I was going to go to college. And the summer I was 16, I worked laying asphalt. Damn. We had over 30 days in a row over 100 degrees, and if you're wearing long clothes and hot clothes, laying hot asphalt, that's enough to convince you that, yes, I in fact am college material.
Wow. Interesting. Okay, so the normal kind of plan, but then you realize, I love that epiphany that I can make more money doing something else instead of sitting here laboring, plus tax advantages, but you know that now. So how did you get into real estate? So you were an accountant first, junior accountant, kind of a side hustle, doing that little money-making thing. And then how did you get into real estate? You knew real estate, though. Was it the bug for real estate? Was that before, when you were a child, that you said you wanted to work on RITs? And like, how'd you actually become a real estate investor?
I think it first started, I heard a interview of a gentleman that wrote a book, which was How to Beat the Salary Trap. And it was all different ways to be self-employed. And one of the things that he talked about was real estate. And I thought about that a lot, and I realized that probably the simplest way or the most predictable way to become a millionaire, in my mind, a millionaire equaled rich, I like round numbers, that the most predictable way to become a millionaire would be to buy $1 million worth of real estate, have the tenants pay it off, it'd still be worth $1 million, and I'd be a millionaire. And that was when I was 16 years old. I tried to buy a house even as a teenager at home, and my parents couldn't talk them into that. But I was 18, and in my first year of college, when I bought the first property, it was a widow woman. Her husband had several rental properties. He died suddenly, and she needed to sell it. We were both too ignorant to know we shouldn't have done it. She was too ignorant to know that she shouldn't sell a house to an 18-year-old. Awesome. With $2,000 or $3,000 down. I was too ignorant to know I couldn't do it, so we both went ahead, and it worked fabulously for both of us.
Do you have that rental now?
No, that was actually in Chattanooga, Tennessee. It's the only property I had in Tennessee, and when I left Tennessee to come back to Oklahoma City, I sold it.
Cool.
Because I didn't want to be an out-of-state landlord. But that was my first experience, and that was all driven just as a need to have someplace cheap or free to live in college.
Awesome. Now, your parents' conflict, did they ever get into rentals?
Never have.
So when you were 16, what was that conversation like? Were they, this is not a good idea, you'll be trapped, or, how'd you convince them? At 16, you couldn't. And then they obviously won that race when you tried to buy it. But then when you got to 18, was it just a defiance? Hey, I'm going to do this?
Well, when I was 16, there was an old, pretty much abandoned cinder block house not too far, 4 or 5 blocks from where we lived. And I thought it would be an interesting thing to buy that and fix it up and rent it. And my parents, of course, were the ones who would have to sign for any note, and they weren't inclined to do that. And perhaps very, very wisely, we didn't get very far into it. But the property when I was 18 was a duplex that I turned into a triplex, and I was looking for a free or cheap place to live. And the one tenant that they had in the property paid enough in rent to make the mortgage payment.
Savvy.
So,
but you didn't have to convince them when you were 18, because they were against it at 16. But you did owner finance, so you didn't
right,
need their signature.
I didn't owner finance. Didn't have to involve my parents, which as an 18-year-old was part of
rebellion.
Well, At least the fact that I can do it on my own.
So one day, like, what was the conversation like? Mom, Dad, hey, I own a triplex or duplex.
Yeah, I bought a house last week.
That was it. That was the conversation.
Pretty much.
I mean, you got to think it's surreal, Robert. 500 units later, I'm like, this is a defining moment in your childhood.
Absolutely, it is, and for everybody, that's the biggest thing is, can you get the first unit, and then after the first one, can you get the second one? And what's I think important about the story is I knew nothing about houses. The only thing I knew about houses, we had always owned the home we lived in. And my dad fixed everything around the house, and as I was growing up, I helped him. So I helped him fix a number of things around the house. That was the only thing I knew about real estate, about anything. I was 19 years old before I ever knew what a cockroach was. This is just to give you a feel for how sheltered and naive I was.
Sure. But I mean, you were obviously driven economically. I mean, I came from humble experiences, and I just didn't want to be broke or poor. I mean, same scenario. I mean, you just wanted to make money. I mean,
yep.
That's an awesome story. So then then you kind of, when did you start turning in the? I mean, your big claim to fame right now, or what's known in Oklahoma City, is Section 8. You're a real big component of Section 8. You have a lot of units that are Section 8. You have like over 200 and something, 250 units.
270, somewhere in
So
that
how'd you
neighborhood.
get from, so you moved back to Oklahoma, and then you went and done being an accountant.
Yes.
Okay, and then what turned you on to being an attorney?
Well, I'll take it chronologically.
Yeah.
When I quit the accountant job, because I wanted something that was going to be really easy, I got a commission-only sales job selling life insurance.
Oh, man.
And did that for about 5 years. That's really not that easy a job, but it is great.
That's murder.
It is great sales training. And while I was selling life insurance in that 5 years, that's when I really got into rental property in a big way. And by the time I quit doing that, I probably had 40 units.
And was there people that you were trying to sell life insurance to? Were they investors? Were they landlords?
No, I had bought a property when I came back to Oklahoma City, and then that was in the fall of '85 that I bought a property.
Wow, so the market was like so tanked.
Well, it had gone down a little bit, and so I thought, well, market's gone down a little bit. This is a great time to buy. But in the next year or two, the market continued to go down a lot. And one of the concepts that you use in investments in the stock world is the dollar cost average. And I thought, well, the value of the real estate I bought has gone down 20%. I need the dollar cost average. I need to buy more so that I won't lose money on the house I already bought. And that was what got me to buy another 15, 20 units. And then after I bought those, the market got really low. We had an incredible bust in Oklahoma City around 89, 90.
$5,000 houses.
Absolutely. And at that point, it was just all the money I could possibly scrape up anywhere to buy as many properties as I could. I didn't spend any money fixing them. The absolute,
Is that where the slumlord came in?
That was. And to start with, I was a slumlord. After a few years, that got to be way too much work, and I stopped. But to begin with, the idea was buy as many $5,000 to $10,000 houses as possible, spend the very least amount of money on them, get someone in them to rent them, and then buy the next one. And when houses are that cheap, that's not a bad plan.
Sure.
Even though being a slumlord is a horrible business model, I only did it long enough to where I got really tired of it. And then after a few years, I realized that I needed to upgrade all the units, and so I made a decision that I would sell or upgrade all the units. And over the next 1 or 2 years, I did.
Now, during this process, you were in selling life insurance. Then you went to school to become an attorney.
Okay, so why did I go to school to become an attorney? Well, I got divorced, and selling life insurance is a very emotional. You have to pump yourself up to get out there and sell things.
Anthony Robbins.
After getting divorced, I'd show up at work every day, but I couldn't sell snot. So after a year of that, struggling with that, I made a decision one January when I set my goals. I said, if I don't have something exciting that's working well by midsummer, I'll go back to school in the fall. That was my decision in January. Well, the middle of the summer came along, and I didn't have anything any better, so signed up to go to law school. I already had an MBA. Law school was next. Didn't want a PhD, so law school was next. What law school really was great divorce recovery for me.
Oh,
I got
you
regular
were sucked into
assignments.
books. You were sucked in books.
Yeah, I got regular assignments. You showed up for class. You passed the test at the end of the course. You got patted on the head, told you're a good boy. Do it again. And after a year or so of that, self-confidence was back up. And in the middle of doing so well, in fact, that in the middle of law school, I opened up a new hotel in Edmond, which was the first new hotel in over 20 years in Edmond.
Cool. Did you build it?
No, it was actually, to start with, it was a converted apartment building. Took 24 one-bedroom apartments, turned it into an extended stay hotel, and then after a couple of years bought another building next door and added 18 more extended stay suites that were built out from almost a new building. The only thing we kept really was the roof.
Cool.
And
that must have been not an easy experience.
it was very educational, and worked very hard at that for almost 10 years, maybe exactly 10 years. Never did make any money as a hotel operator. I finally made some money when I sold it on the real estate, but never did make any money as a hotel operator.
Man. And that took a 10-year tenure there? That whole process was 10 years?
Yes.
Of dealing around with the hotel situation.
Yes. So in life, there's a couple of different people. There's people that quit too soon. There's people that quit right on time. There's people that quit too late. I've always been the guy that quits too late. I should have sold the hotel after 3 or 4 years.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great story, though. I struggle with it. The Seth book, Godin. Have you read The Dip? It's like
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So you're up on the hill and you can't quit until the other side of the hill. But again, how do you know when that time to do quit? Sometimes people think I quit. I'm smart about it. I've given up. It's just I couldn't handle it. All right, so things are trucking along. When did you go full time into being a real estate investor? How long ago was that? You've been doing this for 35 years. You became an attorney. Did you practice law for a while, or was that just for yourself?
I practiced part-time for about 1 year.
Did you go under someone, or
No.
it's just your own office?
Just sole proprietor. And working as an attorney, a couple of things. One, it interfered with my travel schedule because I was already used to being able to travel some. And so I thought, well...
Court dates,
Yes.
summonses.
Yes. And so I thought, well, when I finish up this real estate nonsense, then I'll practice law full-time. And my dream then at that point was to move to Maui, or somewhere in Hawaii at least, and practice law. But I still haven't given up this real estate nonsense, and that was back in 95.
So 20 years ago.
Yeah, so 20 years ago, and at this point I think the work as an attorney is probably never going to happen.
Doesn't matter. You're killing it in real estate. Okay, so you dabbled in that for a while. Then what was your defining moment where you were like, I'm going to go all in, gangster? I know I've been in your life enough to see your transition from kind of slowly moving out of single family and really going all in full multifamily. I know. Are you still in that transition? Because
that started 2.5 years ago. I started buying apartments
pretty heavily,
right? But what really happened, because I used to be like a lot of entrepreneurs, I had a lot of things going on. I had some multi-level marketing things. I had a lot of things that I wanted to chase. And I think it was back in 2004, I was at a seminar, and the speaker had everybody list every business, every type of business, every business endeavor they were in. And I came up with about 12 or 13 things. And then he points out, well, it's no wonder that you're not doing well if you're that scattered. And so I broke my real estate business down into, well, I'm a contractor that I do rehab work, and I'm a real estate investor, and then I buy and finance and own properties, and then there's the property management end for the rentals. Well, there's 3 different types of businesses that are linked together that I'm going to keep. And every other business I had, I got rid of. And I got down to just those things. And from 2004 to 2004, I grew from maybe 100 houses to 300 houses, 350 houses.
just staying focused.
Right. And that was the biggest single change, because I'd had some success before 2004, but never consistent, regular. I'd gotten bogged down in the hotel. I'd gotten bogged down in other things. And one of the things I came back from that seminar was I came back and sold the hotel. Took 3 or 4 months. And
was that a Anthony Robbins seminar, or was it Harv?
That was actually a Harv Eker seminar.
Cool. I know you're a component of personal development. I love that about you. All right. So you stay focused now, and that's kind of your thing now, and then you've just kind of grown. I don't like it when people say single family and grown into multifamily, because I have grown into multifamily and then got shut back down and came down to single family. But I'm kind of going back up. I'm in between. But let's talk more about Section 8. That's your thing. I think you've solidified it. You have amazing systems in place. Why Section 8? I have struggled in this arena, where I used to like it, then hated it, then been burned, and Section 8 just threw me out to dry on a couple of deals where these tenants just tore my house up, and then they're like, sorry.
The first time, my first experience with Section 8 was back in 1988, and I worked with them, and I always tell people the good thing about Section 8 is you're working with the government, and the bad thing about Section 8 is you're working with the government. And when I got started with Section 8, they have everything is a rule, everything is a procedure, everything has to be done exactly their way. And I'm slightly less opinionated than I used to be, and slightly less convinced that I know how the best way to do everything. But back in 88, I was very convinced that I knew the best way to do everything. And I spent a lot of time trying to convince the people at the Section 8 offices of all the ways it could be better if they'd just do it my way.
So basically they're doing it wrong.
No, they're not doing it wrong. They're following
procedures,
their regulations. But I thought there was a better way, and I spent hours and hours talking to different people. Why don't we do it this way? Why don't we do it that way? And all I ever got out of it was heartburn, because they're the government and they have rules, and they're going to follow their rules. So nothing changed. So for maybe the first 12, 14 years with Section 8, I never had more than half a dozen, because there was always so much grief on my part, because I was always fighting with them. I was always telling them there's a better way to do it. I was telling them, let's do it this way. Why can't we do it that way? Why do we have to? Why? And then, again, at a different seminar, we were talking about our businesses and looking at our businesses, and they talked about, look at your customers, who are your best customers, who are your longest term customers. And I realized that my Section 8 customers stayed longer, almost twice as long on average, than my non-Section 8 customers. And at that point, what I figured out was my non-Section 8 customers stayed about 25 months, and my Section 8 customers stayed about 4.5 years. Excuse me. And that was an eye-opener, because in the rental business, I believe that people think the enemy is vacancy. Well, vacancy is a result of turnover. I suggest the real enemy is turnover. And so if my Section 8 customers stayed almost twice as long as my non-Section 8 customers, what I needed was a lot more Section 8 customers. And so I decided that I would read their rule book. And they're happy to share it with you. They have a manual, maybe 100 pages, and it lists all of their rules and regulations. And I thought, I'll know all their rules. Then whenever they quote the rules to me, it won't be a surprise or a shock or a disappointment. I'll go, I remember that one. I read that one. Of course you want that. Of course you want the screen door. Or of course I have to remove that switch. Or of course we don't want to have automatic on at dusk, off at dawn lights. Because I've read the rule book and I know what the rules are. And so the biggest challenge most people have when starting with Section 8 is they don't learn all the rules first. You wouldn't ever consider trying to win at baseball without first learning the rules. It's a fairly complicated game. Section 8 is a fairly complicated game. You can never be very successful at it if you don't stop and learn all the rules first. And they will appreciate it, because then you won't ask stupid questions. You won't make stupid suggestions, because you've read their regulations. You've read their rule book.
So you basically said, hey, I'm going to go all in and change my temporary business model and really focus on Section 8.
Exactly.
But, the negatives of Section 8 is the tenants. Like, obviously, this is a question I get all the time. what's their protection? They have no money moving in. They're not going to have any money to do repairs, and they're not, they kind of leave the house kind of raggy or break things, and they usually have some significant other, because I don't want to be, I want to be PC here. Like they got a man coming over, they got a girl coming over.
If I could back you up to the very first thing you said about Section 8, and let's kind of back up and erase there. What you said, I think, was something along the line of the problem is the tenants.
Well, not all, but yeah.
Okay, all right. So let's back up before that.
Okay.
I suggest that for any given neighborhood, okay, Section 8 people that want to live in that neighborhood versus the non-Section 8 people that want to live in that neighborhood, the Section 8 people are inherently no better or worse than the non-Section 8 people.
I would agree. I mean,
So what you really have is a failure on the part of the landlord to screen properly.
Yeah.
So if the landlord
what you're saying is I didn't do a good job.
Yes, exactly.
All right, awesome.
And I know that because to start with, I didn't do a good job.
No, I mean, not all Section 8's bad, because there's some great Section 8 people. I guess you just have to be a lot harder on your due diligence.
Well, you have to screen all your customers, whether they're Section 8 or not. There's no magic. These are better than those.
True. I mean, plus it's illegal. I mean, you got to treat everyone equally. Yeah, I agree with that.
And once I changed my mindset of I'm going to know all the rules and I'm going to figure out how to make this work, then surprisingly, it worked really well. And again, the biggest benefit, people think, the biggest benefit of Section 8 is you get a big chunk of the rent from the government on the first. That's nice. But I suggest the biggest benefit is, if it done properly, less turnover.
Okay, so I agree with that business model. It's long term, so it saves on changeover, make ready cost. Give us some tips on how you've kind of mediated all this, because there is intensity with Section 8. I mean, you're kind of calm, cool, relaxed. I'm amped up on Section 8, okay? Now, there's a couple properties that I acquired, and there were Section 8 in there, and then they burned me. Here's a quick question that just popped in my head on Section 8. They don't have the deposit. How do you handle that? What's your policy and procedures on?
All my Section 8 customers have a deposit.
Right, but what if they can't? They only have $200 of. Is there?
No, you didn't hear me. All my Section 8 customers have a deposit, and usually the lowest deposit that we go is $100 less than the rent. So if the rent's $500, the deposit might be as low as $400.
Do you work with them? Like, my question is like, I only have $200 today, but I want the property for the deposit.
Have to have a deposit paid in full before move-in.
But you'll take the property off the market on that $200, and then a couple of weeks later they promise to come back with $200, the remaining balance of their deposit.
If I took it off the market for $200, we would have a written contract that specified when they would bring the rest of the money in.
On a certain date.
Right, they have it in by that date. If they don't have it in by that date, they would lose their spot in line for the house. And according to the contract, they would lose the money they already gave me.
All right.
So it's very much a business, and I hold Section 8 customers to the exact same standard as non-Section 8 customers. I treat them the same way. Bring me partial deposit, I'll pull the house off the market, schedule you to move in 2 weeks. If you don't bring me the rest of the deposit in whatever we agree on, 5 days, 8 days, then I'm going to put it back on the market to rent, and you lose what you already gave me because you didn't meet our agreement. Right. So, and I call that a pre-lease, and the pre-lease lists, here's the things that I'm going to do for them as a landlord. I'm going to have the property ready, etc. I'm going to do these things. Here's the things that they're going to do for me as the customer. They're going to bring the deposit in. They're going to turn the utilities on. Everything that they're going to do for me. And if I fail on my part, then I owe them because I didn't meet my part of the contract. If they fail to complete their part, there's a monetary penalty.
Okay. What's I mean, obviously you like Section 8. I mean, you're kind of excited about it, which I'm not. So this is a great subject. Let's go through the benefits, and then let's go through some not so good benefits. So what's the benefits of it? Monthly income in your bank account. Do you have a plethora of customers? I mean, there's Section 8, like you said, in line. You mentioned that. I mean, is there just an overwhelming response that people want Section 8? I mean, you don't have enough rentals, supply and demand. What's the gauge on that side? I mean, you have more Section 8 people than you do rentals available?
It varies. On any given month, we might have 3 times the number of Section 8 applicants as non. The next month, it might be reversed and 3 times the number of non-Section 8 applicants. If I've got a house that's available, and almost all my houses are available for Section 8, there's a few that for one reason or another, I just say, well, I'm not going to offer that house Section 8 because it has maintenance items that I don't want to have to deal with Section 8 on.
So do you do I guess you have your maintenance people go out and do kind of an inspection and then you determine if it's going to pass Section 8. You'll know that because you read the rule book prior.
Right.
And so, but in your philosophy, in your world, you'll do any house that's Section 8. If it's
for the most part, there's a few where for one reason or another, in other words, if it's got a 5-acre tract, and I don't want my Section 8 customers to have to be responsible for mowing 5 acres. Right. Okay, that might be a reason to say, well, I won't rent that one Section 8 because it has an acreage. If it had a swimming pool, at this point I don't have anything with a swimming pool, but if I had a swimming pool, I would not rent that Section 8.
Safety. Liability?
Well, the safety is for both, but I don't know what Section 8's rules are regarding the swimming pool.
How about higher end homes? Like say like $150,000 home on the open market outside of Section 8, you could probably get $1,200, but Section 8 voucher only goes to $1,000.
Well,
would you make a business decision on that?
And I don't really have many of those, but if I had houses where the open market rent was clearly above the maximum Section 8 would pay, well, then the smart thing would be to not make them available for Section 8, because if you make them available for Section 8, the rent's going to be less. So that would not be an intelligent thing to do.
Turnover would, again, do you factor that into your matrix that that an average is going to be 2 years, or do you have an average? Because like that $1,200 house, yeah, you may rent it out 1 year, but if you dropped it down to $1,000, and that Section 8 person can be in there 3 years, so that's 3 changeovers, at least $1,000 a changeover, so it's $3,000. Do the math, that'd be $200 you'd lose. No, you would still come out ahead on the open market rate. I mean, are those the type of business decisions that you make, or is it just Section 8? It's just easy for you and your business model since you're successful in that. You just dump it into that.
At this point, almost everything is available for Section 8. I've got, for instance, I bought an apartment property, and some of the bedrooms do not have a window. Well, I know Section 8 requires a window in the bedroom, and if I have a bedroom that does not have a window because of the way the building is built, that's something I just wouldn't offer Section 8 because I know it's not going to pass.
Interesting. I didn't know that. So I need to read the rule book. I know you had to have a closet. You got to have faceplates. Can't have any daylight coming in. Basic, nothing that's no chip paint. I've been down this road way too many times. You bought an apartment building, let's say, and I'm trying to come up with Section 8 questions to draw it out of you. I mean, you're giving me great answers. You buy a building that's Section 8. It's on the edge of...
Okay, and that particular building, you talked about the fact that you bought some properties and inherited some Section 8 customers and you thought they were horrible. In this case, I bought a property that was 80% occupied, and within the first few months, I lost 2/3 of those people. They were all non-Section 8, and 2/3 of the customers I inherited were horrible and left, or I had to run them off in the first few months, and they were all non-Section 8. So when you inherit tenants, you buy a property and some of them are rented, there's a good chance, because here's the thing, if you buy a property and it's already rented, you're buying it from a landlord. Most of the time, you're buying it from a landlord who's going out of business. Why is he going out of business?
He doesn't know what he's doing.
Most of the time, he's going out of business because he's a lousy landlord. If he's a lousy landlord, most of his tenants are lousy tenants.
True.
So if you're buying a property...
That's why I always get nervous about buying property from a landlord. Yeah, either they cut corners somewhere, they're not diligent.
So you have to expect that. So the problem that you talked about wasn't that you bought a property that had Section 8 customers. It's you bought a property that had lousy tenants who just happened to be Section 8.
Okay. I love your open mind about it. I mean, I commend you. All right. So back to this one question I was about to ask. What about that you buy an apartment building because you're in the mode of buying apartment buildings, and it's not Section 8. There's just a negative connotation to Section 8. Like, oh, they're converting that apartment building into Section 8, and it just becomes like, the projects. Do you go in and convert a whole apartment complex to Section 8? Like this one that you just purchased, that 80% of them were moved out, or 20% of them moved out that were bad. Do you just have a business model in mind? Hey, I'm going to turn this to Section 8?
I generally rent, if it'll qualify for Section 8, I'll open it up and I'll rent it to the first customer that comes along, whether it's Section 8 or non-Section 8. My properties aren't such that the rent is over the maximum limit Section 8 will pay. So I don't have to worry about, well, I could get $1,500 a month on the open market, but Section 8 caps it at $1,000. I don't have those kind of properties. So in my properties, the Section 8 rent is competitive to the open market rent with the properties that I own. And so I go for the first great tenant I can find. Let me repeat. I go for the first great tenant I can find.
All right, Mr. Political here with these excellent answers.
Okay, so don't ever rent to lousy tenants.
Okay, I got it. I get it. So, okay, how about this genuine question? Would you prefer Section 8 over a regular tenant? Money is not monetary. Which one would you prefer? Oh, you slowed down on that answer.
That's hard to say. I suppose I would actually prefer the Section 8 customers because they tend to stay longer. I still have that experience of they stay longer and there's less turnover.
So it's a business model.
Yes. There is a downside to Section 8. And you asked that earlier, but we didn't get there yet.
Let's do it.
Okay. So the downside is they have rules and they have inspections. And if you don't pass the inspections or you don't follow their rules, they hold your money hostage. And it's not a matter of they hold it for a month. You basically lose money. They can say, you didn't meet our requirements. We will not pay you.
I've actually had them suck money out of my account.
Yes, and they can do that.
Had that happen to you?
Oh, yes. Everything has happened.
I just love your positive Sally Section 8. I'm like negative Nancy.
Everything has happened.
I can imagine. I mean, this didn't take possession. I learned the word possession the hard way, $800 way. What do you mean? The guy got the key. He moved in. I saw his boxes. He didn't pay his $40. Well, he never put utilities in his name. That's not taking possession. So we're going to suck $800 out of your bank account. So this joker wasted 2 months of my life, got rent free, and because I didn't read the rule book. I like that simplistic answer. Know the rules.
Combination of you didn't know the rules and you didn't have a system. One of our systems that's in place is before we let a customer move in, Section 8 or non-Section 8, before they can move in, they have to turn the utilities on. So nobody moves in without turning the utilities on. Now, we can't control if they turn it off 3 days later or a week later, but we can certainly make certain that they cannot move in without turning the utilities on. So if you hold all of your prospects, Section 8 and non-Section 8, if you hold all your prospects to a high standard, you will get high-quality tenants. And high-quality tenants, whether they're Section 8 or not, are way less trouble.
True.
And if you're getting lousy customers, it's because you are choosing or allowing lousy customers. It all comes back to the landlord's systems.
No, I love it. And I'm just reflecting back on myself and where am I having problems? And I do have a higher standard now since I hired a property manager that runs it, because I would just take their money because I needed their money because I was looking at the bottom line. But I had a lower standard. And
that's the kiss of death for all do-it-yourself landlords is I took their money because I needed their money.
Mm-hmm. And it's just it's easy, Oh,
yeah, it is. It's easy. And like I say, it's the kiss of death for landlords.
I like that.
The person who needs to move in today, and they're standing in front of you with $500 or $1,000, but they have to move in today.
Well, that's a problem.
And that's what they're telling you is I have to move in today.
That's a problem.
Yeah, we as the landlord need to ask ourselves, well, why would anybody, did your house burn down?
Sure. Yeah, we don't rent to those people. But I agree. That's an easy sign for me now.
Right.
15 years later. All right, Robert, man, we can talk all day on Section 8. Let's talk about, I know you get a lot of people. You run this great organization called Millionaire Possibilities. It's a local group that meets once a month, the first Thursday of the month. It's called, Millionaire Possibilities. It's a real estate group. Why'd you start that? I mean, is it because a lot of people like me ask you hundreds of questions when I see you? I mean, I loved every time, I've got 2 great loans because of you. I have dealt with some undesirable properties because of you that I've taken a leap of faith. You have contributed so much into my life, and it's only been a short when you allow me to get into your little world. What was your desire for Millionaire Possibilities? Love the name. Everyone has a possibility to be a millionaire, I'm assuming.
Yes.
Why'd you start that club, and how's it going, and how can people get involved? And let's talk about that for a few minutes.
We started that a little over 10 years ago, and I get the same thing out of it that everybody else that comes to it gets. I get the chance to network with other people. I get the chance to meet other people. I get to share ideas. I get to hear their ideas, and I get the chance at great deals. At our meeting, which was Thursday of last week, there was a gentleman there, a wholesale guy there that I'd never met before. His first time to come, my first time to ever see him. He had a flyer.
You bought it?
I bought it. We wrote the contract on the flyer.
Fabulous. And what a great story. You got to tell it next month.
I gave him a $50 bill as earnest money and wrote the contract that night. So I get the same thing out of it everybody else gets.
Awesome.
And I didn't jump at that the first thing. It was like 30 minutes after the meeting was over, because I knew there was another gentleman who had looked at the same property. So I gave him all the time before the meeting, the networking time before the meeting, and 20, 30 minutes after the meeting, and it was still available, so I snatched it up.
And I just want to say thank you for putting it on. I know it's a lot of work. You and Ed do a lot of work setting up tables, but, I've benefited. I have actually sold deals there. Mm-hmm. I sold 2 properties to another investor that I even know that investor, but I would have never connected with him. He randomly showed up. It was like 2 months ago. Sold 2 Eastside properties to him. So it was just a great benefit. So how do people join? Where is there a website?
We do have a website, and Millionaire Possibilities is kind of hard to type. Our first website domain name was millionairepossibilities.com, and then we shortened that to mp.com. I'm sorry, mpmeeting.com. Okay. mpmeeting.com, which is easier for everyone to type than Millionaire Possibilities. And if you go to the website, it'll tell you when our meeting is. We meet at the Credit Union House at 631 East Hill, which is the first building off of Lincoln, so just north of the Capitol. We meet the first Thursday evening of every month. So the July meeting was last week. The August meeting is August 4th coming up. This last meeting, we introduced a coaching and mentoring program, which is being offered through Millionaire Possibilities by Ron and Angelina Harris. You mentioned Ed Zinneman as my partner, helps me put on MP every month. It's too much work than I wanted to do.
Sure.
And Ed has been a fantastic help. He does a lot of things. Ed is a real estate broker.
Right, commercial.
Yes.
Which provides you a lot of good leads.
That's true. He does.
He's very busy.
Our first meeting for everyone is free, so everybody gets a chance to come for free the first time. And then after that, it's extremely expensive. You have to be really well off to afford to come. But we start off at 6 o'clock with networking.
Well, what's the price?
And food. I'm going to get there.
Okay.
I've got to tell you why it's a good deal first.
Okay.
It's we start off from 6 to 7 with networking and food, kind of a light dinner, and then we have a formal meeting from 7 to 8:30-ish, and then networking again after that. Your first meeting is free. After that, it's $20 at the door. There's a discount for your spouse and a discount if you're a member.
So let me get this straight. I get three hours of fun-filled adventure for a real estate investor. I get a meal, which is usually good. Mm-hmm. I get to network with like-minded people, because you're usually not a putz if you go to this, because it's in the evening and you got to schedule it, and it only happens once a month.
Right.
And and it's all for $20.
$20.
I've been a member since day one.
If that's not a bargain,
then you shouldn't be a real estate investor. That would be my slogan, but I'm a little bit more aggressive. F you if you don't go to MP. That's what people ask me all the time. I go to MP. It's just great to see people. in all levels of their growth. I could tell the green people, they're like, and then they meet me and they think that I'm, 100 something units. No, have you met Robert Elder? And you're just so approachable. Here's a story that I've got to tell you, Robert, from your MP. And I was, every time I ask you one question, it solves my problem. I'm like, hey, I need more money. Have you called this guy? I call him, I get more money. Hey, Robert, I'm dealing with this heat and air issue. Have you put this wall heaters in there? Don't do the hang-on ones. Put them in. I'm like, oh my gosh, changed my life. I actually gave him how many people I've told that story to? At least 20. Well, one time I was still struggling with some banking. I was at that growth stage in my career as a real estate investor, and I bent down at your RIA, and I picked up a business card that said Dan McCowan on it. And this is when he was at Great Nations Bank.
Yes.
And I had a rookie investor with me in the vehicle. We were actually going to Tulsa for some reason. I don't know why. I can't remember. And I'm like, look, I'm going to show you how easy it is to get money for real estate to this rookie investor, because he was struggling, was brand new in the game and trying to borrow money. I have a Bluetooth in my truck. I dial the card. I found it on the floor of the RIA. You probably fell off a table, or some dumb other investor dropped this card, and I picked it up. It said senior loan officer, vice president, Great Nations Bank, la da 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 da. I call the guy. I said, hey, I picked up your information. Robert Elder told me to call you. I dropped your name in there. And he was like lickety split, jumping all for joy for me. Yeah, what could I do? What do you need? I said, well, I got to refinance this apartment building. Boom. Gave me all the money. And I got it done in 3 weeks.
Dan's a great gentleman. And now he's at First Liberty Bank.
Right. And I've done some business over there with him, but I would have never heard of him. And he's a smart real estate investor banker, which is rare in general, that understands the whole concept of what we're trying to do. No money down. Well, we're trying. And so I met that at the RIA. That's why I'm so faithful to that. And I hope that people listen to this episode today, that they would do the same, that they would get involved in their market and volunteer to serve. I mean, we need people out front taking names and filling out cards and getting tickets, and help serving the food. So get a part of your RIA. All right. So we're done with the millionaire possibilities. That's one of the main reasons why I want to bring you out. And people ask me all the time. So now I can say, hey, Section 8, listen to this episode. You want to have go big, listen to this guy. What advice would you give now? You run this RIA. You got all these young kids trying to come in. The market is so hot. I mean, you had 130 people at the meeting or more.
143.
Yeah, 143. I mean, it just looked jam-packed. What advice would you give to those people now? What would your words be to encourage them or motivate them? Or what words, you're going to die tomorrow, what would you say?
Wow.
Go buy a house. It's a simple one.
That's kind of the simplistic version. But the first thing is for people to realize that they can do this. There's no one that shows up at our meeting. I have yet to see anybody show up at our meeting that, you can't be a real estate investor. You can't be too young. You can't be too old. You can't be too ignorant, because you can always learn. I don't care if you're blind. I don't care if you're crippled, if you can't walk. I have yet to find the person who couldn't possibly make money as a real estate investor. So if you have the mindset that you can do it, then the only thing left is learn some, do some. Learn some, do some. Learn some, do some. Some people get hung up on, I have to learn everything before I start. You'll never get started because you'll never learn everything.
True.
There are occasionally the people that start before they learn anything, and at least they get started. Sure. There's the saying that goes, you can't steer a bus that's stationary. So if you start, no matter how badly it is, no matter how poor a job you do starting, you can always get better. And the people who seemingly have no education, no money, they don't look great when you see them, the people who seemingly have no advantages but will get out and hustle, always outperform the people who are educated, have money, look great, smell great, but they won't get started.
Awesome. And, I know that's true. I have seen, since I've been involved, people that can barely speak English have bought deals and flipped houses in all colors, all races, all size, chubby, fat, short, small, tall, Alan Moore. It's incredible, man. And I just want to just say thank you for what you do for Oklahoma City, what you've done for me, what you do for this community. And I know you give back, and I really appreciate your time, Robert. I know you're got big things coming up, and I'm glad that I'm a part of your life.
Thank you very much, Stephen. I appreciate that. You have done wonderful things as well, and I appreciate everything great you've had to say about us.
All right. So that's it, folks. That's our awesome episode that I have been waiting 2 years to meet Robert Elder, get him on tape. And if you got the message, you can do it. Go out there, go buy assets.
Thanks for listening to the Savvy Radio Show. Glide online and listen to our other motivating episodes at savvyradioshow.com. Connect on Twitter at LandlordBook and always be buying assets.